I'm J.M. Hirsch, food editor for the Associated Press, and we are at the 10th anniversary South Beach Wine and Food Festival. We're talking about the role that geography plays in the foods that we eat. And I'm joined by John Besh, the man who has come to personify New Orleans food, and Tim Love, a proponent of what he calls urban Western cuisine out of Texas. Thank you so much for joining me.
Glad to be here.
So, I want to get us started with the idea that terms such as artisanal and local especially, and organic and natural have become co-opted by major food industry. And they've lost a lot of their meaning in the food world. And because now we can buy Tostitos that are artisanally crafted, supposedly. And so these terms have kind of lost a lot of their value in quantifying the good food. And a lot of people are suggesting that kind of an authenticity, a geography, and a culture behind the food is going to be the next wave. And I want to talk to you guys about this because this is important in both of your cooking. And so start me off in terms of telling me your background and why this is so important to you, but also why this is coming to the fore now. John.
Well, that's a really big question. There's a whole lot there that I really want to talk about. But just to kick this whole thing off in this discussion is really about authenticity of place in food and how it really pertains to our foodways now. And then looking into the future, one can only imagine that this is just going to, we'll continue to see this grow. This movement started 20, 30, 40 years ago with, on the West Coast with Alice Waters, on the East Coast with people like Larry Forgione, and really focusing on local foodways and really bringing that to the conversation. And now it's become, marketing line and so on and so forth. I come from a place that has never really lost its identity. And I think in a lot of ways, New Orleans has held on to it because we've been geographically so isolated from the rest of the country. But as well, I think there's always been an idea in New Orleans of this is the one part of our culture that we can hang on to. It's something tangible that we can pass on to the next generation, and we do that through food and music.
And you saw that especially after Hurricane Katrina,
Sure.
where so many people did leave and food culture did become so important as something that you could hold on to no matter where you went, oddly
Right.
enough.
We saw just how fragile that this culture actually is, and that if we weren't really ready to stand there and see that we perpetuate this culture, then we just become any other ordinary American whitewashed city with this over homogenized food culture that we see that's just run rampant from coast to coast.
I feel like the food in New Orleans really is what kind of rebuilt the city. It seems like all the culture's so deep in what he does in that area that they're the people who really held the city together.
Right.
Gave it a second chance, so to say. And the chefs and all the people that are involved in that culture, the food, really stood their ground in the wake of, like you said, a Hurricane Katrina. Really, you can see what food can do for things, and a sense of place, like you say, does for it. I mean, it was amazing to see that city just hang on to everything that it had, even though it was all wiped out.
And I also think that, when, after the hurricane, when New Orleans started really talking about and focusing on its food culture again, I feel like the national dialogue began anew on that same subject. And I think that's when the rest of the country started paying attention to their local foods and what it means to have authentic food. And now, I know that you love like wild boar and everything. I mean, talk about how this sort of authenticity has influenced your...
Well, in Texas, we're a big hunting culture and fishing culture, and mainly because we have all this wide open space. So, for me, keeping to what I grew up as a kid and what I've always known to do was just go out and hunt. And so naturally, we eat what we kill. And so things like wild boar and rabbit and squirrel and, steers, of course, raised cattle, and then just about every kind of deer and antelope you can imagine. And that kind of thing, in sense of what you're asking about, is we in Texas, we like to serve the things that we shoot. People get upset about hunting and things like that, but it's a natural occurrence that keeps population the way it should be, and on top of that, it tastes really good. So the more that I can accentuate that, that's what I try to do.
Well, thank you so much for both of you.
Thanks for having us.